Okay, this video is going to be a little bit on the sadder side because today I'm going to be informing you guys on why I've been a little absent and a little awkward in a lot of my videos recently. Basically, on November 21st, that Monday, I came home from my singing lessons that day. My papa had had a stroke that morning, and they don't live close to us, so we couldn't do anything about it. He was already in the ICU and we had gotten the call. Luckily, my grandma's a nurse, so she was able to notice it before anything got worse. About 3 days later, on November 23rd, we were finally able to call him, and he looked just like the papa I had always known. Been running, he was moving a lot, and we thought things were going to be great. But then we found out about 2 days later that he was not recovering. We found out that he wouldn't be able to live without the feeding tube, and he couldn't swallow, meaning the feeding tube could cause him to choke a lot. And it just wasn't leading to any good possible situations. Then got the news that they were thinking palliative care. There was nothing we could do to save him. He wasn't getting better, and he started to get a ton of blood clots in his shoulder, and it just kept going down and down. He's always a very stubborn person, so he could never just sit down and, chill, and sadly that's what recovering is. And which meaning his blood pressure kept going up, and they couldn't take him out of the ICU until they got his blood pressure stable, but that was never happening. I had to lead the end of life method. My mom was supposed to have an emergency fly out that day and go to fly and see him. They weren't going to do anything. They weren't going to take out his feeding tube. They weren't going to do anything until my mom got there. But then that Friday before she left, she ended up getting COVID, which was devastating because she could not go to fly out with him. She couldn't go fly out. She couldn't go say goodbye. And then 2 days later, they had to do the method that day. My mom couldn't fly out. It was like an emergency. They had to do it. They couldn't wait any longer. So they did the comforting process and saying their goodbyes over Zoom. My uncle and my grandma were both with him in the hospital. My mom had to do it over Zoom. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't go say goodbye that way because I couldn't stand to see my papa not in, his way. When I saw him over the Zoom that one day, he looked like the exact same person he did the last time I saw him. And I'm going to keep that positive memory with me. December 2nd at 1 a.m., I had passed away. It was a very peaceful passing, apparently. And so I feel very grateful that he wasn't in any pain. Stubborn papa. He never retired. He always worked. He also had to go gluten-free a couple years ago, but he didn't do that either. And we would always have stuff for him to do when he would come out, or whenever we'd go out there, we would always go, and he was just one of the greatest grandpas you could have ever had. My papa was such an amazing person, and he always was there for himself, and he never let anyone tell him what to do, and he was in charge of himself, and that's what I loved so much about him. And he was in love with cars, and so he would have this giant case of these cars, of these little hot rod toy cars, where they would all be a ton of old cars, motorcycles, new cars. And I just remember some of my favorite memories were when we would take those out and we would roll them on the ground, and he would play with me with those, and I was the only person he let do that. He never let anyone touch those cars but me. And it was so sweet, and I remember having so much fun with those, because we would drive, we would roll them across the ground, we would build this ramp that we'd jump them off. When we went out there for my grandparents' 50th anniversary, I remember we also went out there for Christmas, and I got to help my grandpa build one of his cars. He loved cars. He would even build all of his own cars. They would work. They would literally run. He built my built my mom's bike, he built me a little mini car, he built my grandma's car, and he built his car. He has like this little like hot rod bug that he built, and it was so cool, and I got to help him put the tires on that car, and I got to go for a ride in my grandma's Chevrolet, I think it's the car was. But it was incredible, and I've learned a lot from him, and I found passions from him that I never thought because of him. You know, I'm so much interested. I love building things, and it's just been so much fun. I was 6 or 7, we went up. I remember we had Christmas out there, and I got this like Barbie camper. It was like bright pink, and he was like, we should paint that. How about we paint that? Give it a new coat, paint like some bright yellow or something. I wanted to paint it like bright yellow or bright orange, and it was so funny because I remember just like going back and forth about it, and I was like, no, I love pink. He's like, no, let's paint it yellow. Sound like Baldi Basics there for a second. I'm at a loss for words of how to explain him, how to explain his personality, because there are no words to explain it, because it's beyond words. He was always such a stubborn person. I remember we had to go out there when he was gluten-free. Last time we had gone out there, he was gluten-free. And I remember one of my plans was to put put Papa's face and then put an X around it on all the gluten stuff, because you couldn't have the gluten stuff. And I never ended up doing it, but I remember calling him out for eating gluten one time. Or whenever he would come out here, he would always come out and get an orange creamsicle slushy from Sonic. In-N-Out, where he lived, where my grandparents are, they don't have In-N-Out there. So then, whenever they would come out here, he would always go and get In-N-Out. We would always go to In-N-Out. He would always go and buy a shirt from In-N-Out. He worked for Cat. He worked for Napa. The construction companies, I remember he worked for those. But we would play this fly game. We'd play this fly game together where I would go up and tickle his ear, or mess with his hair, or tickle his chin or something. He would just pat it like it was a fly. And I remember always playing that game with him, and it was so funny because I'd be teasing Papa. And then we would start talking. He'd be like, what is there? I was like, is there a fly? Is it just me, or is there a fly in here or something like that? It was so funny, and I would always do that game. And then my grandma would whisper to me spots to do it, spots to tickle, and what spots he didn't like, which spots he did like. And so I would always do that. My mom told me that when I was little, he loved talking to me. He would always talk to me when I was little. I would just sit there and I'd have a big old smile on my face while he was talking to me. And I remember for my 6th birthday, we went on this Disney cruise, and it was me, my grandparents, and all my cousins and my aunt and uncle that went with us. It was my whole mom's side of the family came with us. And I remember we went to this one, I remember just celebrating my birthday with them. It was so fun. And then one of my cousins took 2 of the plates and put them behind my papa's head to make him look like he had Mickey ears. And then my other cousin did that same thing to my grandma. It was Mickey and Minnie. Grandparents' 50th anniversary party. We had all of his cars lined up that he had built, and I remember I got to ride in the car that I helped build. I got to ride in that one all the way there, and we would just have these conversations that were so funny. And whenever we would go for rides in his car, he would take me on a tour. We went on a 2-hour long car ride in his car for a tour, and we just kind of drove around everywhere. I saw things that I'd never seen before with him, and we would just laugh. First, I remember they had the 5 different costume changes, because everyone would give them a ton of a ton of pun t-shirts, meme t-shirts that just had these funny little sayings, something that related to both of them. And so they had like 5 different costume changes at the whole party. Oh gosh, and I remember he got to live his dream in flying a plane. Like I forgot what it was, but it was like one of those like stunt planes, and he had always wanted to like ride one, and so we surprised him for Christmas, and he got to be and drive in one, and they went out and flew, and it was like he was living his dream that day, and we all surprised him with it. I remember he wore one of the coolest bomber jackets that time. It had like flames on it. It was so killer. It was so cool. Wow. Whenever they would come out, like we would have those big Christmases with all of my family from my mom's side, my cousins, my uncle, my aunt, my grandparents, and we would always just have the funniest Christmases all together. Because honestly, my cousins are some of the weirdest people I've ever met. They're so funny and just so weird, and they're awesome. And so when you mash everyone together, you're destined to have a good time when you're with everyone. My cousins would always photobomb all my photos. I know me and my papa were always up to some random things. Like we would always, whenever we were together, we did some silly games and some silly experiences, and it was so funny. I remember this one time he would wear it was like morning, and he was wearing one of my sleep masks that I had out. I was so scared when he put it on, because I was so worried that it was gonna like stretch out and it wasn't gonna fit me. As you can see, it literally fits me fine. If not, it's even a little bit small. Like it fits me fine. But I remember I was so scared that it wasn't going to fit me after he wore it, so I was so nervous about him wearing it. And I may not have been able to see him, every single day or even that often, but throughout the years, the times that we got to see him was some of the specialist times I'd ever had. Whenever someone passes away, we have this box of snow angels for that person. So here's that clip of me picking it out. Okay, so I'm in my room now. But I spent a lot of time digging through all of them, and I looked at every single one. I think I found the perfect one. I'm choosing this one, holding a little Christmas tree. And I'm using this to symbolize that my papa could never just sit around. He always had to be doing something. Whenever he would come out here, he calls my mom the boss. And so whenever he would come out, my mom would always have something for him to do, whether it was building a shed, whether it was planting grass, whether it was building a poker oven thingy. He was always doing work. Okay. And last but not least, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, I truly appreciate you. And I never thought that my last moment with him would be when they came out for my Grease show. They came out to come see that, and we went to Butterfly Wonderland, we went to SeaWorld, and we did all these things, and I took this video of him in the car because I wore like a butterfly headband, and he stole that, and he was like wearing it as like a crown. It's the only thing that I watched. I would watch that over and over again at school, at home, because that was the last video I'd ever taken of him.
Oh no.
Nothing.
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 I don't believe you.
Uh-huh.
You take a selfie with them. Show Pop selfie.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all. Create special memories and take every second and make it a memory. It'll really make a big impact. Love you guys.